Hey there. Welcome to Splain Yourself. This is a podcast created and produced by Michael Blum and me, Sarah Davis. In it, we attempt to explore the reasons why people do the things they do and believe the things they believe. We hope you enjoy episode 1. Michael, share the origin story of this idea.
Okay, well, this story actually comes from my viewing of Cops, the original and still best reality television show. I've been watching Cops since I was probably 9. It's something of a tradition around the Blum house because you don't have anything better to do on a Saturday night. I watched one episode in particular where there was a young lady and she had a stolen car, and the police officer pulled in behind her and attempted to get her car to stop, essentially to put on the lights and sirens so she would stop, so he could talk to her about driving around in a stolen car, and she refused. So she took her stolen car through a parking lot of a apartment building, essentially, and as she was going through the apartment building, she jumped out while she was driving onto the ground. And the car then had no driver and crashed into one of the walls of the apartment building. Luckily, it wasn't going that fast, and it didn't injure anybody, but it's very dangerous and obviously very illegal. When the police officer, eventually arrested the woman and asked her on camera, why did she do that, and didn't she realize that was unsafe what she did, she just simply said, "I wasn't driving that car." From there, it got me thinking about the cognitive disconnect, or generally just like poor planning I witness on the day-to-day. When I witness people doing things that I consider irrational, I like to stop them and ask them to explain themselves. And I've had this idea, I was actually thinking about having a television show where the host just merely asks, "Explain yourself, and why did you think that was a good idea?" to the guest, and that would be the whole premise of the show.
Oh my gosh, that's great. What a great origin story. And I hope you don't mind, but we're definitely stealing that for this podcast. We're going to try to do an episode every week in which pros get together to talk about, deep or interesting or fun or weird or stupid things about themselves and how these things came to pass and how they affect our day-to-day lives. So, episode 1 starts right now. I'm so excited. Let's do this. So the topic today, the topic we're going to start with today is rules. This is something we've talked about, Michael and myself and a couple of other pros actually. So not rules as in like the next high school rules, because that would be a boring conversation to have right now. We're going to talk about just rules in life and whether we consider ourselves rule followers, and we're going to try to explain ourselves. So Michael, why don't you go first? What do you think about rules?
Okay, generally, I like them sometimes, which is the least specific answer I could give. It is my opinion that rules are sometimes good, but they can also be sometimes bad. For a long time, for example, segregation was the law of the land, and I think that is morally poor. It's a very cut and dry example. Other rules are less difficult, are more difficult and more less clear. So, the example I always use when I discuss rules is one time I was in the gym and it said, there was a sign on this big, heavy punching bag. And it said, "Please do not kick the bag." And I really wanted to kick the bag, right?
Of course.
So I looked at it and I thought about it, and I had to really process whether or not this was a good rule and it was worthy of following, or it was just arbitrary and therefore not worthy of following. What I ultimately decided that the injured party here was either going to be my shin or the bag. And if it was my shin, which it turned out to be, that was okay because I was the one injuring myself. The bag was not, in my opinion, incurring any extra damage.
Right.
The bag doesn't care if you hit or kick it; it's going to incur the same amount of damage regardless.
Right.
So I looked around to make sure that there were no gym employees watching what I was doing, and I kicked the bag until I hurt my shin.
How many times did you kick it?
Probably 3 or something. They weren't fearsome kicks or anything.
Right.
The other thing I'll tell you about kicking a bag is that it's a rough surface, so it's sort of like kicking quasi sandpaper.
Yeah.
But I wanted the right to kick the bag, even if it injured my shin. And this is how I go through life, trying to navigate rules.
Sure.
Often I think that most rules are in a place to keep order, but I don't agree with all of them. Sarah is more of a rule follower than I am.
Well, let's quantify that. I probably am, because, and I think we've talked about this too, how the motivation behind wanting to follow rules, I think, is different for some people. And for me, I'm just scared of getting caught. I'm scared of people thinking negatively of me, so that affects how I take rules and either follow them or don't follow. If I think there's a low chance of getting caught, like speeding, I do that every day, and I don't do it excessively, so I feel like there's a very small chance that I'll be on the side of the road trying to explain myself to a police officer. So I break that rule all the time.
That was nice how you looped that back around to explain yourself to the police. And I think the difference between Sarah and I here is really twofold when I think about this. Number one is that Sarah is a people pleaser, right? Where she really wants people to like her, whereas I am not a people pleaser, frankly.
Do you want people to dislike you?
No, I don't openly court dislike.
Right.
But also, I'm not going to change what I do based on the perception of what's popular. If I think it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do. The other thing is, I think there's probably a gender dynamic here at work, right?
Definitely.
This is part of the charm of the South.
Yes.
Right? Is
quote unquote charm.
Right, the charm, whatever you take that to mean, is that women are often raised to be and expected to be people pleasers.
I agree with that.
I'm not from the South, nor am I a woman, nor am I a Southern woman, and therefore I don't feel any of these constraints. So... What forces that act upon you to feel like it is necessary to be a people pleaser?
That's a great question. You could probably, I could probably pay a shrink to dive deeply into that one. But as far as I'm aware, I am happier when everyone around me is pleased with me. If I haven't ruffled anybody's feathers or made anyone angry, I consider that success. Like when I get to the end of the day and I look back and I say, all of my relationships are still very much intact. That's how I know I've had a successful day. And I've heard that there is this gender disparity, and maybe not even just with the South, but that women do place relationships over things like just the tasks that I accomplished in the day. Have you heard that before?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, so that's part of it, is that I view everyone that I interact with as a relationship, whether it be a very serious, connected relationship like my husband, or just a very casual, this is just someone I happen to work with kind of relationship. But I want all those to still be intact. And I feel like if I've done something that someone doesn't agree with or approve of, that has somehow violated the terms of our relationship, and that it's on me to fix it. So,
right, and this is the part that's really interesting to me, is that even if somebody does something rude to you, you feel that it is up to you to fix it.
Yes.
Because you're the one who's going to keep the terms of the relationship, even though they're the ones violating.
Yes. The responsibility lies with me. Now, I may not agree. I may be angry at that person. If someone's rude to me, that will upset me just like it would anybody else. And I'm probably going to ask, well, why is that? Because I don't think I did anything. But I probably will wonder, and I'll question it. It's not healthy. I'm with you.
Right. Unfortunately, I think this is very common.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. But rules that I like following are the ones that are very visible, obviously, because this ties in with the whole, are my relationships intact? So if, let's say our boss, and, we're both teachers, so we have bosses who set expectations for us with things like, we want you to be here on time, we want you to be in this place at this time. Simple things like when we have all school assemblies, we want you guys to be sitting with your classes and supervising and that kind of thing. And I've noticed that some of us do that and some of us don't. And I'm one that, like, it makes me very uncomfortable if I'm not in the place that I'm supposed to be, doing the thing I'm supposed to be when the bosses are there watching, you know? So,
right. Are you more concerned about being sanctioned, right? That you may get in trouble?
It's somewhat that, but I also kind of feel like there's a moral element to it. Like, well, this is what they said that we should do, so we should all feel like it's important to do it. You know, I almost have this alignment with the rules that are set. Like, yes, I agree that that's a good rule. And I actually do agree that sitting with your classes during all school assemblies is a good idea. But
sure, and I'm certainly for sitting with your classes, and during assembly. I think that one's fine.
Yeah.
My concern is sort of when you discuss this is that we are granting an undue amount of moral authority to institutions.
Interesting.
As I've gotten older and after my 350 years in graduate school and reading my nerd books, I have become ultimately distrustful of institutions generally. I think that they should each be evaluated on their own merits, but for me to say that somebody up high said something, so therefore it is automatically moral, makes me very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because there are often people in high power, right, who have said things and people have accepted them as moral when it was apparently obvious that they were not moral. Segregation,
exactly,
again, is a good example. From this, we run into another kind of rule-following problem, which is I really dislike graduation ceremonies.
Oh, yeah. They're the worst.
Why?
Explain that. Where's that hate coming from?
My hate comes mainly from the idea that the school, whatever school it is, has some kind of authority over me and that it should be celebrated. Right? The way I look at it is if you would like to reward me for all of my hard work, let me be. Right? Give me my 3 hours back.
Sure.
Essentially. Continuing when I go to graduation ceremonies, it's usually the dean who talks about how great the vice president is.
Right.
Who confers. I don't want any of that stuff. Right? This is
not really for the students.
Right. It's reinforcing authority and sort of ceremonially rather than doing anything for the students. We will give you a token 13 seconds across the stage and get a picture of it, but the ceremony is not about you. One of the worst experiences I've had as an adult was my graduation from the University of Memphis where I got my PhD.
Yeah.
It was absolutely miserable. And this may have been my own, in fact, I'm sure it's my own doing to myself, in that I wanted nothing more than to be done. I'd been in graduate school, in college for 11 years and graduate school for 5.
Sure.
And I literally just wanted to go to lunch.
Let me leave.
Yes, let me leave.
So you were forced to go to your ceremony? You couldn't just skip it?
I could skip it.
Yeah.
What I began to realize is when I started talking to the people who had invested in me, like my dissertation advisor, that the ceremony was only a little bit about me, and it was actually for them.
Okay.
Mainly. And I'm completely happy to honor and respect those people who put in a tremendous amount of sacrifice for this. My dissertation advisor, the other people in my dissertation committee, and the professors at the school, as well as my wife and my parents and my in-laws who all sacrificed a ton so I could complete that.
Sure.
So I'm completely happy to honor them, but I could not get past the internal unhappiness of this. So my only act of rebellion was at the end, you're supposed to process out in an orderly fashion.
Oh,
so they're like, get in line behind the people that you came in, just turn around and walk out.
Sure.
And I had my degree, and I had my little weird doctoral hood, and I was like, yo man, you don't have anything on me now. And I walked to the side of the line, and I was out 30 seconds sooner than everybody else.
So you just kind of cut out of the ceremony.
I sidled it.
Sidled. That's a great word.
That's what I did to it.
You sidled out. That's great. That is great. So we're going to have a graduation ceremony here because we've got 20-something seniors this year?
Yes.
And we're probably all going to go. And so how are you going to, what's the struggle going to be for you?
It's going to be a struggle. I mean, there is no good resolution to this.
Sure.
Obviously I feel obligated because work, pays me for my time.
Sure,
essentially.
absolutely.
But it doesn't mean I like it any better.
Yeah. What would you say if the argument, because and this isn't me, this is me predicting what someone might say
There are a lot
in
of
response.
People, yes, a lot of people love graduation ceremonies.
Sure, right. Well, I don't love them. I've never actually thought about them. They haven't ever made me, they haven't given me any negative emotions. But I'm wondering, besides just boredom, I've sat through a lot of them
yes.
now. I taught middle school, so I had to do the 8th grade graduations. And, it takes a long time, and you're just, But to me, it seems like it's more for the families, To parents, it seems like it's a big deal. So if a parent said, Michael, I don't agree with your attitude about graduations because it's this moment that we get to kind of see the culmination of all these years of hard work and they get that piece of paper and we get to take these pictures. And I already hear problems with this argument, but what would you say? I
would say yes. I mean, you have certainly made an investment in your child, and if you would like to view it that way, that's perfectly acceptable, but this is not the way I view it, right?
Right.
I don't have a child graduating.
Sure.
And I am suspicious of sort of ceremonial displays of power regardless of the institution that does them. And don't want to sit through it.
Yeah.
I will, right? And I'll sit and smile.
Right.
But it doesn't mean I won't wrestle with some internal conflict.
Absolutely. Wow. So we went off on graduations, which was a great conversation to have, I think, because I'd never thought about that before. I gotta go away and think about it, and then maybe we can circle back to that. But yeah, I think you made a good point about rules that are handed down from institutions, and I think we're in agreement because where I like to follow rules in most work-related situations, I also want to align, like I said, morally with the rules. I want to feel like they're in place for a good reason. So the rules I'm more likely to follow to the letter and then defend to other people are the ones that obviously I think are good rules to have. And I'm trying to think, because this is a unique school that we're at, obviously, and I'm trying to think of rules that we have here that I may or may not agree with,
So let's peel back the curtain. Sarah and I live in roughly the same area, and there is many occasion where I will see Sarah on a drive into work, and she's going 162 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's about right.
In the 45.
Yeah.
She's going so fast. One time I saw the flux capacitor activate, and she actually went back to the future.
Yep. 1.21 gigawatts. That's what happened. Yep.
That's right. Doc Brown was riding beside her. It was the whole thing.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think you can make a clear case for the necessity of speeding laws, but yet you continue day in and day out to put the thing up on 3 wheels when you get in here.
I do.
So you do, and we've discussed this before, you do kind of a calculation here to determine speeding.
I do. I absolutely do. Most of the time, if I'm paying attention, and I try to pay attention to my speedometer, I won't go more than about 10 miles over. The only exception would be if I'm trying to get quickly away from someone I've deemed an idiot who is a danger to me. Right. I might very quickly get around those people. But yeah, if I'm just, normal driving, it's usually about 10 miles over. And that's only because I've heard that police won't really mess with you if that's the speed. And I'm not investing in a radar detector. I guess if I really wanted to take it seriously, I could do that. But yeah, it's mostly that's because I like to go fast. I'm basically Ricky Bobby. I want to go fast. And also, I feel like speed limits are kind of dumb. I've read some stuff about speed limits. I don't know if you know, about the research they've done where they take speed limit signs out of places and everything seems to be fine, I don't know. So
I think the argument would be that speed limits prevent people from either hurting themselves or hurting each other.
I guess that's the argument they would make.
They don't prevent, but they limit.
Sure, that's the whole idea, is limiting. Yeah, absolutely. But if it's safe to go 45 in a space, it's probably safe to go 55, I guess, is my argument.
Right, but couldn't you then extend your argument to it's safe to go 65?
Yep, and I would.
Yes, you would. But at what point then do we determine
Right, I'm sure.
it is not safe?
There's a cutoff, absolutely.
85 and a 45?
I don't know. I guess it has to do with like how much activity is on that road. You know, like are there houses directly on the road? And on Pleasantburg, which is the road that we take, there are residences along there. Yeah, so that's something you have to think about. But other rules, I'm trying to think. I don't break a lot of them. What's another one that you don't mind breaking?
Another rule I don't mind breaking. I mean, there are plenty of rules I don't mind. I don't.
But that you do break on a regular basis.
The other rules that I really like to break, and actually this is more of my main focus, are I would call them sort of unwritten rules of social interaction. And this is the ones that I'm more into because I think they are often just made of nothing.
Yeah.
I would like to introduce you to what I call the Adam paradox.
Adam paradox?
Yes.
Okay.
So when I was growing up, I attended a summer camp every summer. And there was this guy there named Adam, and he was like really tall and good looking and popular and athletic.
Okay.
And I was me, so I was none of those things. And he was not very nice to me because he was kind of arrogant, and I was short and fat and not very athletic. And I always thought that he was a jerk. And when I got done attending the camp as a summer camp counselor and he got done doing the same, I figure I'll never see this guy again.
Right.
And this is one thing off my list I don't have to deal with.
Sure.
So fast forward 8 years. A mutual friend of ours, whose name is Ryan, he got married.
Yes.
So I walk into the lobby, and there's a bunch of folks that I know, standing around, double gun pointing, smoking and joking. And I said, well, look, there's Adam. And I said, well, I just won't talk to him.
Right.
This is no big deal.
Why not?
He doesn't particularly like me. I don't particularly like him. There's no sweat off my teeth, or however the saying goes.
Right.
And so I thought this was good. We ended up in line together for
awkward.
Right. So I was in front of him, and I think we shook hands earlier in the evening, if I remember the story correctly. But we ended up in line together, and we were going to have to wait. I can't remember what we were in line for. One of the traditional, maybe a reception line or something. And so he turns to me, and he says, Blum, how you doing?
Yeah.
And I say, nothing.
Really?
I'm looking at him. We're face to face like Sarah and I.
You just didn't even say anything.
No.
Oh my gosh.
And he says, hey, how you doing? I said, I'm good. And he says, how are things? I haven't seen you in a long time. I said, they're fine. And we went on like this for like 2 really uncomfortable minutes. Eventually, he stopped asking me these questions.
Right.
And I turned back around.
Yeah.
I felt at the time like I had literally just had a huge victory. Right?
Really?
Yeah, I really thought like I was Muhammad Ali.
Sure.
Like I'm the champ of this mug out here.
Right.
So this is 2006 this happened to me.
Okay.
Or I did this, it didn't happen to me.
You're the victim.
and this is being a paradox because I cannot quite figure out if I did the right thing.
What's the alternative? What would be another...
So people who are a little less petty than myself...
Sure.
And I think people maybe who are people pleasers would say, oh, that happened 8 years ago.
Yeah.
So this would be what I assume is your line of reasoning. This happened 8 years ago.
Well, I might go that way, but yeah, I feel like I would probably still have resentment toward him, but I would be completely 100% sweet in that. Like, I would carry on a conversation like we were old friends, and then I'd walk off and like tell my husband, oh my God, that guy was such a jerk. But, there would be that, like, two-faced situation going on.
Right. So
whereas you were being genuine.
Right, I was being genuine. So part of this is your people-pleasing.
Yes.
But at the same time, on some level, don't you feel like you're wronged, and at some point you don't have to put up with this any further?
Yeah, I do. But, like, if he's not abusing you in the line, like, if it's not a continuation of what he was doing to you all those years ago, then it's not like you're in a situation where you have to put your foot down. Because he was being cordial. But there is a question of, like, should you have even gone a step further and brought up, like, do you remember how you were a jerk to me at camp, you know?
Yes. So this is another sort of aspect of this, which is the chances of him remembering his behavior 8 years ago towards me are almost none.
Right.
So if I was to now put myself in his shoes, I'd be like, wow, why did Michael do that to me? All I was trying to do was inquire about his well-being.
Just trying to be nice, man. Just trying to make small talk.
Trying to make small talk and line it away.
Yeah. But you felt like you had a victory because you were just giving these very short, like, I'm just going to try to end this conversation.
I'm showing you, basically I'm standing up to you.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
I have advanced in my self-confidence to the point where I'm not going to take this from you anymore. Right? And that I did not forget that you used to do this to me, or we had this relationship, and that I will not put up with it anymore.
Wow.
Right? So you have no anything over me anymore. And in fact, I'm turning the tide on you, right?
Right.
Because when you come in and you want to be all, chummy, or at least polite in that case, I'm not even trying to hear that.
Right.
You just stare at the back of my head.
I love it.
So these are the kind of rules I'm really interested in breaking.
Sure.
However, I cannot, and I've been thinking about this pretty readily for the last, 2006, so let's call that a handsome decade. And I cannot determine if I did the right thing. What do you think?
So to this day, you don't know.
No.
Well, let's see. My opinion is obviously going to be biased by my deep need to make people happy. So I'm going to try to separate that out and say, if we're just going based on like my moral code, it would be like, be kind to people even if they are not kind to you, golden rule kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah, like, so even if this guy was a jerk to me 8 years ago, or even if he's being a jerk to me right here in this line, I guess what I was taught as a child was you treat those folks with kindness. But I'm not saying that's what I would do in that situation.
Right.
But we are asking, did you do the right thing? I don't know. I guess it depends on where your values are.
Right. And the other sort of side of this is, why would you put up with somebody treating you badly?
This is true. So that's the other question. So and this is relevant for anybody who was a child, and especially for people who do have children. Like, how do you help them in those situations where it's like, I don't want you to be a jerk, but I also want you to stand up for yourself. And honestly, I have no idea how I would handle that as a parent, like, at all.
Yeah, neither Sarah or I have any kids, so we don't actually know how to...
Yep, no kids between the two of us.
That's right.
Or, so we don't have the expertise, but, I mean, we were kids, so my parents, they handled that on a case-by-case basis, but they leaned more toward, you don't ever act out aggressively toward anyone, even if you get pushed to that level. It was like a walk away and tell someone kind of thing. Like, be the tattletale, be the person who's seeking a help from adults and not trying to, like, handle it yourself. And I wasn't ever really in a situation where, like, here's me versus this other kid, and there was no option, and I had to stand up for myself. Right. I was lucky enough not to really get into those situations, so I don't know.
Right, and my parents would have certainly said, you ignore this. And
sure.
That's it. If I would have ever informed them of this paradox of my situation with this guy, Adam, they would have told me that, you need to be the bigger person.
Sure.
And basically that... I was 26 when this happened. It's not like I was 11.
Right.
That I was not being very mature, frankly, and that just to let this person go.
Right.
And there is value in that opinion as well. I think maybe this has to do, now that I'm sitting and thinking about this, as sort of, maybe this is an issue of, like, masculinity. Like, I'm a man. Right? It was one thing at 18 or 20, whenever this went on. But this is another thing entirely at 26, where I was like a fully established adult. And there is a point, where as a man, I feel it's my responsibility not to get pushed around. Right. So maybe this has something to do with it. And
that probably is part of it.
And then I think this really begs a deeper question, which I'd be really interested in your opinion about. Is this sort of like macho-ness? Right? Is this really what makes you a man?
That's a really good question. Machismo. Let me think. what makes a man a man? Now, this is a conversation that I have from time to time with, like, Jerry, my husband, and friends, because we're in it. I mean, it's 2017, so the idea of manliness has evolved a lot over the last, I don't know, I guess several decades. But we listened to the Art of Manliness podcast. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. So in that sense, and I think he does, the host, I think, is Brett something. I forget his last name. He's really good though, and he, in his view, I think he likes to paint masculinity as like you're intelligent and you know how to do a lot of stuff and you know how to behave in a lot of different situations, and you're fit and you're healthy, and it's just the picture of just like being a complete human being.
Right.
So this is why I like to listen to it, because I think it applies to anybody, you know, not just men. So is the idea of being a man more just being a well-rounded person versus like let me be physically strong and get in people's face if they come at me, you know, like something to consider.
Yes. So if your husband had been in that situation, let's just say he shrunk a foot and lost a bunch of hair and he became me.
Sure.
What would you have advised him to do? What would you have wanted him to do to make you proud?
I got you. To make me proud.
Yes.
Okay, that's a good question. Well, he usually handles himself pretty well in awkward situations. He embraces awkward. He loves awkward. His favorite show is Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he loves it. And I can't even watch these shows with him. I run away from awkward. He moves towards it. And in that situation, he would want to be as humorous as possible. So he likes to cut through awkwardness with humor. Either to like make it more awkward or to diffuse it depending on whatever mood he's in. But I would be proud of him if he was able to shut down some kind of affront from a person if he can just be funny and now that person's confused. You know, it's like the old, you know, just confuse the bully so he goes away kind of tactic. But in that situation where a guy's being polite to you, where you've had this awkward history, he may, since he loves confrontation, Jerry might have just said something about the past. He would have brought it up. He might have said, "Hey, I remember you. You're that jerk from camp. Like, are you still a jerk?" Or you know, something like that. I don't know. Probably not that confrontational. But he might mention like, you know, what are you up to these days? And like trying to dig information out of him so he can...
Still arrogant?
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh man, you were such the bee's knees in high school. Or, you know, like, Are you still so popular? I don't know. I'm not funny like Jerry is. I wish he were here so he could tell us what he would say. But... yeah, wow. So we got all the way around to gender. Gender, yes.
Awkward situations.
Yes, social rules and situations. That's awesome. This was pretty comprehensive.
Do it again, right?
Oh, we're definitely doing it again. Yeah. School's almost over, so we should probably wrap this up. But yeah, we'll be back with another episode, and that'll be after fall break. But Michael, thanks for being here today, man. And yeah, thanks for letting us steal your idea for this podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. I'm glad Splain Yourself finally rolled itself up off the ground, managed to escape its arrest, and came to fruition.
Absolutely. Episode 1, done. All right, everybody. In the meantime, you guys act natural. We'll see you next time.